everybody. Thanks for joining us today. For our closing security keynote, we have Ronald Waters, who is the cybersecurity advisor with the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency, also known as CISA, with the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. So Ron, it's great to have you again. I won't take up any more of your time. Go ahead and take it away.
Thank you, Megan. All right, good evening or good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, let me say thank you for the opportunity to come speak with you today. I do greatly enjoy this. Usually it's in person, but let's talk about that. 6 months ago, or a little over that, had this event been happening, I'd be standing in front of you now, and we'd be looking at each other, and I'd be giving you pearls of wisdom. You know, you get up in the morning, you do your morning routine, you get in the car, you grab your cup of coffee, you drive to your work, you walk in, say hi to everybody, sit down, and you start working. In that environment, you have an IT department that comes and looks at all your systems. You don't know they're looking at them, but they are. And they're making sure that those systems are all up and running. They're all secure. They're making sure that things are patched and all your antivirus stuff is working. Well, since COVID, we've come into a whole different environment. We've run into some challenges. For instance, I'll give you an example of a challenge: bandwidth. Right now, you're seeing the seal of the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency because the bandwidth at my particular residence in Western Washington isn't significant enough for me to put video and audio up at the same time. That may not seem like a big deal to you until you figure that I've got to do 3, 4 of these a week, and you know I don't have the bandwidth because of my location to be presentable or to be presented. Of course, I look a little like Sasquatch now, so if you hear any Sasquatch findings, it's probably me walking around my yard. As we go through this, the IT folks at your organization had to come up with some solutions. First of all, if you think about it, let's say you're a medium business with 200 people, and they have a sales force of maybe 10%, so 20 folks. So when they scaled their remote access to meet their business process, usually they'll scale it for their actual sales force plus maybe 10 to 20%. So let's say, for the sake of argument, that your remote access concentrator was scaled for 40 people. And now you have all 300 or 200 of your employees working remotely. That's a bandwidth issue. First of all, you have to deal with the bandwidth at the location that the employee is working from, in their homes. So some of you who live in metropolitan areas have high-speed bandwidth. And when I mean high-speed, I'm talking like fiber, high-speed cable. You've got more bandwidth than you need. And some folks live in rural areas like where I'm living on my 17-acre horse ranch here in Western Washington, but I'm out in the sticks. So I may get 1 or 2 megabits per second. So it's significantly different. The second consideration is the bandwidth at the organization's site. Again, it's scaled so they can work within their confines of their employment. So they're not expecting 300 people to all log into the network at the same time remotely. While the local area network within the building can handle it, the actual concentrator may get saturated or bogged down, and that may explain why you're seeing slower response time, which causes you frustration. Not only are you locked up in your house because of COVID, now you can't access work as quickly as you had in the past, as if you were sitting at your desk at home. Now, we ran into these problems in March, April timeframe, and majority of them have been figured out, and workarounds have been named. There's other considerations. There's considerations from the standpoint of the IT department not having enough equipment to give all the employees. So you may be authorized to work from home, but your work did not have a computer to give you, and so you're using your computer at home. Well, there's a couple problems with that. First of all, is your computer up to date? Your IT department doesn't know. Do you have antivirus? Your IT department doesn't know. Are your children using that as a gaming system, and are you now exposing your organization to whatever's on your system? Of course you are. And those are things that your employer and your IT department need to figure out. Because if you think about it, when you're at work and little Johnny and little Susie are at home and they're playing on the computer, you don't know what they're doing. You don't know if they're gathering any unknown viruses or malware on that system. And so when you have been sent home to work and you're working from the same computer, you're now exposing your organization to whatever malware is on your system. So IT guys, this is where you need to look at a network access control system. And if you have the wherewithal and funding, you might think about being a certificate of authority. And what that is, for those of you who don't understand, the IT guys are all shaking their heads. Those of you that are not IT guys, a certificate of authority basically says, the computer says, I know this system's authorized to be on my network, so that you can't use systems that don't have the proper certificates on them. It's expensive outlay. And for those small businesses, I don't recommend it for you, but you medium and large businesses might want to consider it. Just like we authenticate the person, we should be authenticating the system also. Now, that brings me up to another thing, and this is more a personal issue for those of you in your home computer systems. We talked about what your children do on the family system, but what do you do on your family system? Well, a lot of you are working from it now, but what else do? You do your banking. Most people are using electronic means to do banking and do business from home. That is personal, but all that information is on that family computer. So if you're using that system to do your personal banking, and your son or daughter, or even you, go to a gaming site, or in some cases an adult entertainment site, and get a piece of malware, all of your personal information is now exposed. My recommendation to you is that, because systems are so inexpensive now, and it may seem far-fetched, but hear me out. Systems are so inexpensive now, you can go to Walmart, or you can go to Best Buy, or you can go to any of these stores and get yourself a nice laptop for a couple $100. Set that laptop up, do all your banking on that laptop, and do only your banking on that laptop. Put that laptop in your closet. That way, you're not exposing your personal information to the outside world. Don't do anything but your highly critical personal things on that laptop. That's how I do it here in my home. I have a machine that I do stuff on, and then I have my machine that I do business on, and that's all I do on that system is business. I make sure it's updated, I make sure it's patched, and I make sure that the antivirus is up to date. It's just a suggestion. Now, getting back to work. So we know the IT guys have had a struggle. We know that small or medium and large businesses pretty much have it handled. What about you small businesses? What about you mom and pop shops? Small, maybe less than 10 employees. Well, what do? You don't have a big IT department. You've got maybe your nephew or a guy named Bob you've hired to be your IT guy. Well, you've got to figure out what to do. You've got to sit there and go, oh my God, how am I going to handle this? First things first, is your systems patched? Now, what I mean by patching is every month Microsoft puts out security updates. Are all your systems configured so that they download and upload or patch your system to close vulnerabilities that have been discovered in the last month? They should be. That's something that in large organizations is handled by a central IT department. In small organizations, you have to configure each one of the machines to do that for you. Same with antivirus updates. You need to patch your software to make sure that it meets the latest vulnerability requirements. Simple to do, not hard. If you give me a call, and you'll have my information at the end of this presentation, or come over to our booth. We have a virtual booth I'm sitting at today. You can come and ask me those questions, and I'll be more than happy to walk you through it. It's a simple process, but you need to, in order to save your business, make sure that your systems are up and patched. Now, small business also, I get this question is, what do I do if something bad happens? Well, in small organizations, you need to run backups. Now you can do this with a flash drive. Windows has an indigenous program called Windows Backup. You once a week come and back up those systems to a portable hard drive, a flash drive, a CD-ROM, some way that you could back up that information, because God forbid you should hit by ransomware and your whole organization gets wiped out and you have no backups. You've lost all your business information. You should be backing up your server every week, but you also need to back up your local machines. Now, medium and large businesses with an IT department, this is second nature. Backups are handled all the time. There should be a ongoing backup on site, and there should be an off-site backup. The digital backup should be transferred to tape and taken off-site and then brought in weekly to be updated with the last week's backups. The reason for the off-site backup simple. If your building burns down or Cascadia Rising happens and your business falls into a hole after an earthquake, you're able to recreate your business in another site. It maintains continuity of operations. Also, for you medium and small businesses, you should have an incident response plan. Your incident response plan should be known to everyone, should be easily found and easy to follow. I know I know this may be second nature to some of you, but believe me when I tell you that a large number of organizations out here in private sector do not have an adequate incident response plan. Now, some of you are laughing. Well, that you're right. There probably was no section in your incident response plan for pandemic operations, because it's not like we have these every other day, nor are they prolonged as this one has been. But it may not be a bad consideration as an annex to add to that incident response plan. All right, so we've talked about bandwidth. We've talked about access control for systems. Let's talk about access control for individuals. When we, in this new world, talk about attaching to a system or a network from our home, we usually have to use a username and password. Username and passwords are specific to an individual, but usually follow a standard regimen. For instance, if you're in an Active Directory domain and your name is Smith and you're bob.smith at, and then your domain name, well, your email name, which would be bob.smith@acme.com, your Active Directory name is bob.smith. So you log in bob.smith. Easy for a hacker to know. Now, the trick here is the password. Are you using a strong enough password that can keep you from being hacked or brute forced? The standard is, uppercase, lowercase, a number, a letter, and a special character. And it should be at least between 8 and 15 characters total. Well, what do we do when we figure something out that's really cool? We usually write it down. When you're at home, that's not as big a deal as if you're at work. Believe me when I tell you that I go into businesses all the time and I sit down at people's desks with their CISO, and I usually pick up the keyboard and attach to as a sticky note at the bottom of the keyboard with the user's password on it. I can figure out what the user's name is because it's usually the user's name is somewhere around the office or the cubicle there. So it's, there's Bob and Mr. Smith, so it's bob.smith. And then I pick up the keyboard, there's the password, and I'm in the system. You got to remember that when you leave at night, people come in to clean your business afterwards. If they're an evildoer, needs access to your system, one of the accesses is to get hired by the cleaning crew. Because ultimately, everybody who works is going to be gone. That cleaning guy is going to be in your business. Now, I'm not saying go back to your work and start eyeing your janitorial staff and wondering if they're secret spies. What I'm saying is don't make it easy for them. Don't leave username and passwords sitting on your desk or attached to your monitor, which is another big, I don't get this. Another big thing, a sticky note to the monitor saying, hey, this is my password. Use a password logger. Password logger is a piece of software that sits on your system that is encrypted, that you can list your passwords and get rid of, shut it, and it's encrypted. And it stays encrypted until you de-encrypt it by using your key. Your key is usually another password or another token or a device that you plug into your computer that will unencrypt that key logger. No, I'm sorry, not key logger, password logger. So think about this. Don't write this stuff down. I mean, if you think about it, somebody in your office that if you open their desk drawer, there's a list of their passwords. You look at their monitor, it's stuck there, it's under the keyboard. It might even be on a pad on their desk in plain sight. So we know what happens. We try to tell you not to do it, but it still gets done. Now at home, probably okay, unless, your children like to play with your computer and log into work to see if they can get there. You might want to keep that from them. Also, when the length and consistency of your password, as I said before, we talked about it being uppercase, lowercase, number, and letter. But we found in a study was done 2 summers ago that if you have 3 words hooked together that are non-related, for instance, rutabaga, video, football, that's much harder to break than something that is linear. It was surprising to me, but it's proven time and time again. Problem is remembering what 3 words you link together, and again, so you're going to write them down. Try not to do that. Don't make them words that are related to each other either, like dog, Fido, shepherd. That's not going to work as well. Make them 3 words that are non-related, that you loop together into a single phrase, and you should be pretty strong you should be safe from anybody trying to brute force that quickly. Okay, so now we've authenticated the person, we've authenticated the computer, and we move closer and closer into the network. The other things you have to think about too, and the best form of authentication is two-factor authentication. Two-factor authentication, we see banks and other agencies using more regularly. This is where it's something you have and something you know. So you log into your banking account. The bank says, okay, we sent you an authentication code to your phone, which is something they know, your number you put into your account. Now your phone gets a text with a number on it. You type in the number, boom, you're authenticated. Seeing more and more of that, which is a smart way to go. In the federal government, we use what's called a common access card. And our common access card is our ID card. And the ID card has a chip similar to what you see on your credit cards. We slide that card into our computer system. It now authenticates that card to the computer. And then I have to put the PIN in to authenticate me to the card to the computer. So that's our method of two-factor authentication. For those of you in medium and large businesses, this is a consideration. You can use that card for numerous things. Some of them have strips on the back that you can use for slide-in physical access. The chip will authenticate to the system. So it's a one card does it all. That's a good way to go. Problem is the initial outlay is expensive for the creation, for the software purchase and the creation of the cards. However, term of ownership, it's a lot less when you consider the possibility of someone infiltrating your network, it's a lot harder to do if they don't have physical access to the cards. Small businesses, forget it. It's too expensive for you in that aspect. Now, you can create the two-factor authentication like your banks do. It's going to cost you a little bit of money, not as much as the common access card, but once it's set up, it should work fine. You have your contractor, I'm sure you have a contractor that comes out and does your computer stuff, and he may be able to guide you on how to go about doing that. But it's a consideration for remote access. All right, so we've accessed, we're in the network now. What do we do with slow bandwidth? We talked a little bit about that at the beginning. You have to be patient. You're not going to be able to download everything as quickly as you normally can because you're not sitting on the network directly. You're going through a bunch of exchanges to get to where you should be. So you just, it's patience. I know it's frustrating, but that's just the way it is. For those of you high speed, bam, you don't miss not being at work because you're there. If your VPN concentrator, which is what you're connecting to remotely into your network, is not saturated and you've got wide bandwidth at home, hey, you're cruising right along and life is good. And you're able to function at a level that's consistent with what you had at home. And that's a good thing. Let's talk about communications. Email. Emails is both the bane of my existence and a very important tool. Bane of my existence because what happens is evildoers have found that they can get to you by impersonating someone else and asking you to do things, or click on a link, which then sends malware to your system. And if you're on your network, it could, fill your whole network, and that's something you don't want to have happen. So what do we do? Well, in small businesses, do not click on links within email unless you personally know, or have a good reason to believe that the email you received is from someone that you know. If it isn't, just delete it. Get rid of it. It's not important. If you're unsure and this is a client, call them and see if they sent you an email. If the answer is no, delete it. Medium and large businesses, you should have plenty of things to keep you safe and blocking those emails. However, occasionally you will get one, and it will permeate your system and network. You need to find a way to block those out. And this goes back to what I was talking about earlier as backups. As we go through Office 360, or a lot of companies moving to Office 365, that software is that email server is no longer housed locally. So there's some advantage to that, in that corporations like Microsoft, who house these large email servers, they're doing that fight for you. However, you're still occasionally going to get an email that somebody has spoofed to look exactly like your customer's email. How do you know it's not? First of all, look for things that aren't correct. Spelling. Businesses don't want to be known as people who cannot spell correctly. So if there are grammatical errors or bad spelling in the email, it's probably spoofed from a foreign entity, and you should just delete it. If you're not sure the email originator, take your mouse and hover over the email and see where it resides. What domain did it come from? If you expect an email from Bob Smith at acme.com and you roll over Bob Smith and it comes back at, some numbers at some domain.ru, well, that's a Russian domain, and just delete the email. Or you can notify your IT team. Don't send them the email because inadvertently someone will probably click on the link and infect your systems. We're also running into a lot of ransomware. Ransomware is a nasty devil. That sends a system piece of software. You click on the link then encrypts all of the information on the network. Well, excuse me, all the information on that particular computer, and can further encrypt systems on the network. And then they want money to give you an encryption key, which may or may not work. Understand that when we talk about money for ransomware, it's usually in Bitcoin. And you don't think it's a lot because it's like 300 Bitcoin. Well, I had a customer that had a ransomware he's going to pay. It's only $300. I said, no, it's 300 Bitcoin. Well, what's a Bitcoin? Well, let's take a look at the exchange date. At the time, the Bitcoin was going off at $16,000 per Bitcoin. So we're looking at $4.8 million to unencrypt the system. He was a little wide-eyed and aghast at the fact that in order to get his stuff back, he had to pay $4.8 million. First of all, the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security strongly urge you to not pay ransom. If you're a member of the MSISAC, the MSISAC and FBI have keys for some of the older ransomwares that will or may unencrypt. If not, then we have to look at other solutions to get your systems back. But paying the ransomware only perpetuates the belief that people can hack you and, you know, get to your systems and you'll pay. Not good. You're liable to be hit again. So don't click on email that you don't know where it came from. Other systems, other things to consider: visitors. Make sure that when you have visitors, places you don't know, they're not looking at your business information. We could talk about operational security. You don't want to let people know you're not someplace or you are someplace. Leave yourself vulnerable that way. And basically just maintain good cyber hygiene. Now, I could go on for another hour and tell you all of the things that you could or could not do, but I don't have that time, and you're all desiring to go virtually into all the booths that are surrounding the Seattle Cyber Summit today. So please feel free to come by our CISA booth. I will be there today. Come and ask me a question, and I'll be glad to answer it for you. And at this point, I'm going to turn it back to our moderators. Thank you for letting me speak to you today. Are there any questions? I can't see them.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. Yeah, we do have a few questions. First one is, if I suspect my system is compromised, what can I do?
Well, the first thing I would do is it depends on whether you're a small business owner or a medium to large business owner. Medium to large business, if this is you think your system's compromised, contact your IT staff immediately. What they're going to do is they're going to look at your system logs and see if there is in fact a compromise. If you're a small business owner and you have an IT guy, tell him to check the logs. Tell him to look at stuff and see if the system's compromised. The first thing I would do, though, is take that system off the network, because you don't want that system to infect other systems within your network. That's basically the top advice I can give you at this point without actually knowing the specifics of the situation.
Okay, perfect. Another question here is, can CISA provide any assistance for my organization, and what does it cost?
Yes, absolutely. We have a wide variety of services. If you're interested, we can come in and do remote penetration testing. We can phish your employees. We can do what's called cyber hygiene, which is a probing of your perimeter router to see if your router is configured properly. If your router is not configured properly, it can be a problem. And I know some of you out there have no idea what I'm talking about. But I bet a majority of you have seen Game of Thrones. So let me see if I can put it that way. Pretend you're Jon Snow and you're standing on the wall. And you've got to keep the wildlings out of Westeros. And your wall has 65,536 doors, and you don't know if all of them are closed. That's what we're here for. We're going to go knock on each one of those doors and make sure that it's properly closed if it's not supposed to be used. What happens is your IT guys, God love them, I was one once. We do things, we do testing, and sometimes we'll open a port that is uncommon to test, and then we'll forget to close the port on the router. Well, that port's now open to the outside world and can be vulnerable to evildoers. So what we do in CISA, we will go and scan those ports and make sure that they're all properly configured and closed, and we'll send you a report and let you know. Also, I provide 3 assessments that you can use or you can request, and my assessments look at your procedures, policies and procedures, the administration part of cybersecurity. We do a cyber resilience review, which looks at 10 of your domains. We look at asset management, vulnerability management, risk assessment, training, everything you could possibly have any administrative part of, we'll look at against the standard. Our standard is the resilience management model, which crosswalks directly to the NIST cybersecurity framework. So you'll get a report and tell you where your gaps are. And then I'd be more than happy to help you close those gaps or give you suggestions on how to do that. We also do what's called the external dependencies model, which I come in and look at everything you don't think about. We are so network centric, we don't think about things that affect our network, like persistent connections to vendors or contractors, water, power, physical things like law enforcement, access control. Those are all part of the external dependencies model, which gives you an idea how you are from people remoting into your systems. And the cost of these, I'm glad you asked that, Megan. The cost of these are absolutely nothing. I love to use the phrase from our tax friends with free, 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 free. So if you remember that part, you'll remember that CISA has services that we can provide to you, and we'd be more than happy to do so.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. I like the Game of Thrones analogy also. That was smart. We have time for one more quick question. Someone asked, as a business owner, what should I do if I'm attacked with ransomware?
Well, okay. You're the business owner. You've been attacked with ransomware. If you're a large or medium business, hopefully your IT guys have done decent backups. My suggestion to you is to disconnect the system that's involved. Take a look at your server log, or excuse me, your router logs, and see what port that information is going out on. Now, just a hint, ransomware will stay dormant on a system, and then it will trigger. It will trigger and it will phone home. Will phone home, download the ransomware, encrypt the system. But there's got to be a communication between that node that's infected and the server that has the ransomware on it, and it pulls it in. Usually this is off a non-consistent or standard port. And it goes back again to cyber hygiene. If that port's open and they can communicate across it, you're going to get ransomware. If you have that port closed, then that evil little bug on your system isn't going to be able to talk to anybody. And ransomware, while you may be infected, the ransomware won't get to your system. So another push for cyber hygiene. Now, if you do get the ransomware and your IT guys are pretty sharp, you check the logs, you isolate the system, blow the system out, re-image it, reload it from, yes, backups. And this is where I go backup. The problem that we run into in industry is we don't back up the system, the nodes, the computers themselves. We back up servers all the time. Servers are backed up, configurations are backed up, but the actual computer system with all of your personal files is rarely backed up by the enterprise. So it's incumbent upon you, the individual, to back up your own stuff onto a flash drive, CD-ROM, or a portable hard drive. If you're hit with ransomware and your IT guys come and blow out your system and re-image it, you have all of your documents. The biggest complaint I hear from people are, my IT guy came and he blew up my system, I lost all my stuff. Well, where's your backup? What? Yeah, you don't have a backup, you lose your documents. Now, you could have them backed up to a server on the network. Good idea. But again, you run into the problem of if that ransomware proliferates your network, your file systems may also get encrypted. So where are your documents? Well, they're on your desktop, it's encrypted. They're on this file server, it's encrypted. And again, you've lost all of your documents. Back them up yourself. Get permission from your IT folks to have a portable hard drive in your desk. And every Friday before you go home, back up your files. And then put it back in your desk. Not hard to do. That would be my recommendation for small and medium businesses. And small businesses especially, you guys don't have a big IT thing. It's incumbent upon you to back your stuff up. That includes your server. My other recommendation is if you have a server and you back it up, you may be able to get your backup onto a DVD. Take that DVD off site, because if in the civil unrest we've been seeing lately, if your business gets broken into or trashed and everything is busted, at least you have your business documents at home with you on a CD. You can continue with your business. May not be in the same brick and mortar space it was before, but at least you can pick up where you left off and keep going. I hope that answered your question.
Yeah, it's a great answer. Thanks so much. All right, I think that's all the time we have. But thank you again so much, Ron, for joining us. It's always a pleasure. Hopefully, as you mentioned, we'll see you in person sometime soon. But for now, we're having you virtually, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
All right, thank you, Megan. It was a pleasure talking to you folks. And again, if you want to, I did promise to let you know how to get in touch with me. You can reach me at ronald.waters, WATTERS, at cisa.dhs.gov. And again, thank you for having me today. It was a pleasure speaking with you, and I hope you all have a great day.
Awesome. Thanks, Ron. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.